Hello everyone. Today's topic is uptake and transport of nutrients, and types of nutrition is also included in this presentation. Myself Dr. A. Mathuri, Assistant Professor of Microbiology from Government Degree College for Women, Begumpet. Now let us understand what is the definition of uptake of nutrients. First of all, what are nutrients? Nutrients are the source of energy which are required for the cell to function. Okay, so in order to support cell activities, a cell must bring its nutrients from the external environment across the cell membrane. Now coming to the term uptake of nutrients, it means that to support the cell activities, it has to get nutrients from the external environment to the internal or interior of the cell membrane. In bacteria and archaea, several different transport mechanisms exist. So these are the microorganisms which are exhibiting different types of nutrition uptake mechanisms. In this nutrient uptake mechanisms, first one is passive diffusion. Passive diffusion means, or it is the another term for passive diffusion is simple diffusion. It allows the passage across the cell membrane of simple molecules and gases such as carbon dioxide, oxygen, and water. Okay, so by this mechanism, this is one of the mechanism for uptake of nutrients into the cell. So in this mechanism, what is getting transported is carbon dioxide, oxygen, or water, right? They are crossing, they are transported across the cell membrane. And in this case, a concentration gradient must exist where there is higher concentration outside of the cell than inside the cell. So in order to transport the substances or the molecules by this mechanism into the cell, right, there must be a concentration gradient. What do you mean by you know the term concentration, but what is gradient? Gradient means difference. There should be concentration difference between the outside of the cell and inside of the cell. So where should be the concentration higher, whether it is inside the cell or outside the cell? Definitely it is outside the cell. Okay, in other words, if you want to absorb carbon dioxide, the concentration of carbon dioxide must be higher outside the cell than inside the cell. So when there is a difference of concentration of this molecule, so we can say that there is a concentration gradient. Okay, so when this type of concentration difference is there, or when the concentration of the required molecule is more outside the cell, then this passive diffusion can take place. As more of the cell substance is transported into the cell, the concentration gradient decreases, slowing the rate of diffusion. So what happens during transport is, when the molecules are getting transported one by one from the external environment into the cell interior, the number of molecules in the outside or the external environment decreases gradually. For example, if there are 100 molecules outside the cell and 0 molecules inside the cell, so there is a concentration gradient of 100 molecules, right? So when the molecules are getting transported from outside to inside, the number of molecules present outside the cell decreases and inside the cell increases gradually. Okay, so when this concentration gradient will gradually decreases, and there will be a point where equilibrium is reached between the external and internal environments of the cell. For example, out of 100 molecules, if 50 molecules are getting transported or have transported into the cell, so what will be the number of molecules outside the cell? It will be 50 outside and 50 inside. Now there is no concentration gradient here. Okay, if there is no concentration gradient, the passive diffusion process will stop. Understood? Until the until there is concentration gradient exist, this process of passive diffusion will occur. When this concentration gradient decreases, or when equilibrium is reached between the external and internal environments of the cell, this process will stop. That is the main criteria or main driving force for passive diffusion is concentration gradient. Next method is facilitated diffusion. Facilitate, the word facilitate means helping. Okay, means something is helping for the process of diffusion. Okay, if you try to learn the meaning of diffusion, diffusion means it is the movement of molecules from high concentration to low concentration. Okay, even in the last mechanism, which was passive diffusion, we have seen the same process, right? There it was the movement of molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration, but it was a passive, or it was occurring without any force or without any helping molecules. Okay, but here in facilitated diffusion there are some what do you say, structures which are helping in this process. Okay, so let us see in detail this process. This also involves the use of concentration gradient, where the concentration of the substance is higher outside the cell but differs with the use of carrier proteins, sometimes called as permeases. Okay, now you might have understood what is the difference between passive diffusion and facilitated diffusion. There is only one difference. What is that? They are carrier proteins. Okay, here carrier proteins are involved in facilitated diffusion, whereas there is no involvement of these carrier proteins in passive diffusion. Okay, in passive diffusion there was no involvement of any proteins in this process, but here there are carrier proteins. So for the other name for carrier proteins is permeases. These proteins are embedded within the cell membrane and provide a channel or pore across the membrane barrier, allowing for the passage of larger molecules. Means where these carrier proteins are located? They are located in the cell membrane, right? And what they are doing? They are providing a channel or pore across the membrane barrier, allowing for the passage of larger molecules, right? So they are present in the membrane and they are providing channel for the movement of molecules from the outside of the cell to the inside of the cell. If the concentration gradient dissipates, the passage of molecules into the cell stops. As it was happening in passive diffusion, same thing will happen in facilitated diffusion also. When the concentration gradient decreases, the process of facilitated diffusion will also stop. But the role of carrier proteins is to only the give the passage or help in the transport of proteins across the membrane into the cell, but only according to the driving force of concentration gradient. Each carrier protein typically exhibits specificity, only transporting in a particular type of molecule or closely related molecule. Okay, so here we have seen there are carrier proteins. Okay, here there is a specificity, means a particular carrier protein can transport only a particular type of molecule or closely related molecules, but not all types of molecules. So in other words, for the transport of different types of nutrients into the cell, different types of carrier proteins must be present in the membrane system for facilitated diffusion. Okay, I'm just revising this concept of facilitated diffusion. First of all, diffusion means the movement of molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration, and facilitated diffusion means here it involves the carrier proteins or permeases for the transport of proteins. Since carrier proteins are present in the membrane and they are providing a channel for the transport of these molecules, but strictly adhering to the concentration gradient. When the concentration gradient decreases, the transport of nutrients will also stop. Third concept is active transport. Here the term active involves, it involves energy. Okay, by the term active we can understand that here energy involvement is there or ATP involvement is there. Now, many types of nutrient uptake requires that cell be able to transport substances against a concentration gradient with a higher concentration inside and the cell than outside. In order to do this, a cell must utilize metabolic energy for the transport of the substance through carrier proteins embedded in the membrane. This is known as active transport. Okay, so here first thing you have to understand is, uh, before active transport we have seen passive diffusion and facilitated diffusion. The diffusion means the movement of molecules to higher concentration to lower concentration. Here active transport means it involves the movement of molecules from lower concentration to higher concentration. It is in the opposite direction. Okay, it is not as a diffusion process, it is quite opposite for the diffusion process. Okay, means again active transport means it is the movement of molecules from lower concentration to higher concentration. In other words, suppose X molecule is there, X nutrient is there, its concentration is higher inside the cell and less outside the cell. Even then, the molecules, X molecules, which are present outside the cell, even though their number is low when compared to the interior part of the cell, they have to be transported across the membrane, but using metabolic energy. Using metabolic energy here, or ATP is utilized in this process because the transport is being done against concentration gradient. And here also carrier proteins are involved in the transport, and this process is known as active transport. All types of active transport utilizes carrier proteins. As we have seen in facilitated diffusion, carrier proteins are involved. Even in active transport, carrier proteins are involved, but major difference is here ATP is utilized, metabolic energy is utilized. Now, till now we have discussed three types of transport mechanisms. This diagram shows clearly each demonstrates each type of transport mechanism with a simple diagram. If you can see this, so this is the interior of the cell and this is the exterior of the cell. Okay, if you see the number of molecules here, there are more outside the cell and less inside the cell. That is why they are moving inside to the cell. This process is by simple diffusion or passive diffusion. Now this is facilitated diffusion. Here also the number of molecules is higher on the outer part of the cell or exterior of the cell, and less in the interior of the cell. And the movement of molecules is being done from outer side to inner side of the cell. Here carrier proteins are involved. Here carrier proteins are involved. And the third part, the number of molecules are more in on the inner side of the cell and less on the outer side of the cell. Here also carrier proteins are involved, but along with carrier proteins, ATP involvement is also there. This process is called as active transport. So these two processes come under passive transport and this is called as active transport. Next concept is primary active transport. This primary active transport involves the use of chemical energy such as ATP to drive the transport. One example is ABC system, which utilizes ATP binding cassette transporters. Okay, primary active transport. Here, as we have seen in active transport, energy is utilized. Here, ATP is utilized. And example is ABC system. ABC system is ATP binding cassette system or cassette transporters, ABC transporters. So in this process, each ABC transporter is composed of three different components. How many components are there? Three components. First one is membrane spanning proteins that form a pore across the cell membrane, that is carrier protein. Okay, in this method, in ABC transporter, first component required is proteins which are present in the membrane, or membrane spanning proteins are required, which are forming a channel for the transport of the nutrients. Next component is ATP binding region that hydrolyzes ATP, providing the energy for the passage across the membrane. Now, on the these proteins, there must be some site for the binding of ATP. As the name active transport, here ATP must be utilized. So there must be a site on these carrier proteins where this ATP can bind and then get hydrolyzed to release the energy, so that that energy can be utilized in the transport of nutrients across the cell. Now, third component required here is a substrate binding protein, a peripheral protein that binds to the appropriate substance to be transported and ferries it to the membrane spanning proteins. And then substrate binding protein or a peripheral protein is required, which is responsible for binding to the nutrient molecule and getting across the membrane into the cell. So once again, revising this, ABC transporter needs three components. In that, first one is membrane spanning proteins, second one is ATP binding site on the proteins, and the third one is carrier proteins. Substrate binding proteins are required, which can bind to the particular substrate and they can transport that particular substance across the cell. Now, in gram-negative bacteria, the substrate binding protein is located in the cell's periplasm, while in gram-positive bacteria, the substance binding protein is attached to the outside of the cell membrane. Now, the third component which was required for in ABC transport system is carrier binding protein. Okay, there is a difference in this carrier binding protein in gram-positive and gram-negative cells. In gram-positive cells, these substrate binding proteins are located in gram-negative cells. Substrate binding proteins are located in periplasm, while in gram-positive cells, these substrate binding proteins are bound to the outer side of the cell membrane. Now, what do you mean by the word periplasm? Periplasm is the space present between cell wall and cell membrane. Okay, so in gram-negative bacteria, these molecules are present in the space present between cell wall and the cell membrane, that is periplasm, whereas in gram-positive bacteria, the molecules are attached to the outer side of the membrane. And this is the ABC transport system, ATP binding cassette transport system. Now we have discussed about three components. So these are, first one is this carrier proteins, right? And second one is substrate binding protein. This blue one or purple one is a substrate binding protein. These are the carrier proteins. And this third component is this carrier ATP binding region. Okay. Now what happens is, this is the interior of the cell. This is the exterior of the cell. Now substrate is present on the outer side of the cell, which has to be transported across the cell, right? So first step in this process is this substrate should bind to substrate binding protein. Okay, the substrate must bind to substrate binding protein, and then it has to be transported across the cell, across the cell. Now this is being transported across the cell. Now next, what happens when it is ready here, ATP will bind to this ATP binding region. Here it gets hydrolyzed, releasing the energy. that with the utilizing that energy, carrier proteins will form a channel, or where they will transport this substrate bound protein from exterior part of the cell to interior part of the cell. This is ABC transporter system, and these are called as ATP binding cassette transporter. ATP binding cassette transporter. Now, whatever process we have discussed till now is primary active transport. Okay, now we have to study about secondary active transport. Now, let us understand what is this secondary active transport. This utilizes energy from proton motive force. A proton motive force is an ion gradient that develops when the cell transports electrons during energy conserving processes. What is protein motive force? It is a ion gradient. Ion gradient means difference in the concentration gradient of ions. Okay, that develops when the cell transports electrons during energy conserving processes. Okay, when cell is transporting electrons, it will result in the formation of ion gradient across the cell. Positively charged protons accumulate along the outside of the negatively charged cell, creating a proton gradient between the outside of the cell and inside of the cell. So what is happening here is, when electrons are getting transported from outside of the cell to interior of the cell, inside the cell negative charged ion gradient will increase, or negative ions will increase because of accumulation of electrons. So positive charge will decrease. So compared to the interior of the cell, positive charge will be more on the outside of the cell, creating a proton gradient. Now protons are less inside and protons are more outside. That is why proton gradient is created between the outside of the cell and interior of the cell. Now, in this secondary active transport, there are three different types of transport events. They are uniport, symport, and antiport. Each mechanism utilizes a different protein porter. Okay, these are the mechanisms of transport of molecules in by secondary active transport, and in each mechanism different proteins are involved. Coming to the first type of transport mechanism, that is uniporters. They transport a single substance across the membrane either in or out. Uni means single. Okay, so uniporters are transporting a single molecule either from outside to inside of the cell, or from inside to outside of the cell. Next is symporters. Symporters means they transport two substances across the membrane at the same time, typically a proton paired with another molecule. Okay, symporters means they are transporting two molecules or two substances across the membrane but in the same direction. Next is antiporters. Antiporters transport two substances across the membrane but in opposite directions. As one substance enters the cell, the other substance is transported out. Okay, the difference between symporters and antiporters is, symporters is transporting two substances simultaneously but in one direction, either from outside to inside or from inside to outside, whereas antiporters, they are also transporting two molecules or two substances but in opposite direction. In opposite direction, if one molecule is moving from outside to inside, the another molecule must move from inside to outside, or in other words, they are transporting these two substances or these two molecules in opposite directions. Now this is the different mechanisms which are covered in secondary active transport. One is the uniporter. You can see the transport of a or the substance in one direction. Uni means single. Uniporter, transporting a substance from outside of the cell to inside of the cell. Next is symporter. Symporter is transporting two substances A and B, but in the same direction. Both are moving from outside to inside. Whereas in antiporter mechanism, here also two substances are being transported, but when A is moving from outside to inside, B is moving from inside to outside. This diagram is more important for representation of the three types of mechanisms in secondary active transport. And the next one is group translocation. So group translocation is a distinct type of active transport using energy from an energy rich organic compound that is not ATP. Okay, group translocation means it is a type of active transport. Active transport means here also energy involvement is there, right? But using energy from an energy rich organic compound, but not ATP. Right, in secondary active transport, as the name active is there, energy source utilized is ATP there. But in group translocation, here also energy involvement is there, but ATP is not involved. Then what is involved? Organic compounds are involved, or energy rich organic compounds are involved. In other words, here ATP is taken or utilized from, or energy is utilized from energy rich organic compounds. Okay. Next, group translocation also differs from both simple transport and ABC transporters in that the substance being transported is chemically modified in the process. So, till now, whatever mechanisms we have seen, either passive diffusion or facilitated diffusion or active transport in the primary or secondary active transport, we have never seen anywhere that the molecule which is getting transported will be modified. Nothing of that kind is seen in the previous mechanisms, where here in group translocation, that is the main difference we can see. Okay, in other words, the nutrient or the molecule which is getting transported across the cell is getting chemically modified. Okay, and one more important difference is the energy which is being utilized in group translocation mechanism, it is not ATP. It is energy rich organic compound. So one of the best studied example of group translocation is the phosphoenol pyruvate sugar phosphotransferase system. Okay. So here the example we are going to study is PAP, that is phosphoenol pyruvate, and sugar phosphor for the transfer of phosphoenol pyruvate, sugar phosphotransferase system is involved, which uses energy from high energy molecule phosphoenol pyruvate. Okay, so this PTS system or phosphotransferase system is transporting sugars into the cell. A phosphate is transferred from the PEP to the incoming sugar during the process of transportation. Okay, so when a cell is transporting a sugar molecule from outside of the cell to inside of the cell, a phosphate group from phosphoenol pyruvate is transferred onto the sugar molecule. And this transfer system or transport system is called as phosphotransferase system, sugar phosphotransferase system. Okay, why this name phosphotransferase system is phosphate group is being transferred from phosphoenol pyruvate to the incoming molecule. That is why the name phosphotransferase system, as phosphate group is transferred onto the molecule. Now this is group translocation via phosphotransferase system. We can see this is the interior of the cell and this is the exterior of the cell. In the exterior of the cell, we are having glucose molecules, and this is the phosphate PTS system or phosphotransferase system. Here this is the enzyme, and this is the glucose six phosphate molecules. On the outer side, glucose molecules are there. On the inner side, you can see these are the molecules, and this is the phosphate group attached to the glucose phosphate, and this is the enzyme. Now let us see the process, how it is happening actually. So in order to when this glucose molecules enters into this carrier protein here from outer side, from the inner side at the same time, from the inner side, one phosphate molecule will also enter into the molecule or enzyme. Okay, so you can see here glucose is entering from one side, phosphate is entering in from the another side into the same enzyme. Inside the enzyme, they are binding to each other, forming glucose 6 phosphate. And after formation of glucose 6 phosphate, it is getting released into the cell. It is getting released into the cell. So this enzyme is catalyzing the addition of phosphate onto a sugar molecule, forming a glucose phosphate and then releasing into the cell. And in other words, energy is taken from phosphoenol pyruvate. Now, in group translocation, we have studied 2 points, two major differences, right? One is energy source is not ATP, but other energy rich organic molecules. Okay, so what is the energy source here? It is phosphoenol pyruvate. This phosphoenol pyruvate in place of ATP. And what is the next major difference we have seen? It is the modification of the incoming molecule. Okay, the molecule which is getting transferred from outside of the cell to interior of the cell will get chemically modified, right? So what molecule is getting, what nutrient is getting transported here? It is glucose. In what form it is getting transported into the cell? In the form of glucose 6 phosphate. It is getting transported in the form of glucose 6 phosphate. That is, there is a chemical modification. So two conditions or 2 points which we have studied about group translocation is fulfilled in this diagram. This is the best diagram to represent group translocation mechanism. And the next method is iron uptake. Iron is an essential element which is required by the microorganisms, but iron cannot be taken up normally from the environment with easy things or not by diffusion, however. But there are important proteins which are involved for this mechanism. They are also called as siderophores. Okay, now let us see about iron uptake mechanism. Iron is required by microorganisms for the function of their cytochromes and enzymes. Okay, so in the cell functioning, we have seen it requires there will be cytochromes and different types of enzymes are there inside the cell. Okay, so resulting in it being a growth limiting micronutrient. Means when iron is compulsory for the functioning of some of the enzymes and cytochromes, it should be present in the cell, or it should be taken up by the cell efficiently. And this is one of the reason why when it is being a growth limiting micronutrient, it is called as a growth limiting micronutrient. Growth limiting means if there is no iron, growth cannot occur. Right, that is why it is called as growth limiting micronutrient. Why it is called as micronutrient is this iron is required in micro quantities by the cell. That is why it is called as micronutrient. That is why the name growth limiting micronutrient. However, a little free iron is available in the environments due to its insolubility. So what is the um, concentration of iron in the surroundings of the cell or in the environments of the where the cells are existing or the bacteria are existing? Okay, definitely the concentration of iron in the environment is very less, very less. Why it is very less? Because of its insolubility. It cannot be soluble in water. So as it is insoluble, the concentration of iron is also very less in the environment. So many bacteria have evolved siderophores, organic molecules that chelate or bind ferric ion with great affinity. So bacteria has evolved different mechanisms for the uptake of this iron from the surroundings to the interior of the cell. So in this process of developing mechanisms, the bacteria have developed some specialized proteins called as siderophores. Okay, in other words, you can call these siderophores as magnets. What will the magnets do? Magnets will bind the iron strongly. Okay, if you keep one magnet piece and one iron piece, definitely both will at- attract each other with a great force. The magnet will attract the iron with a great force and bind to it strongly. So in the same way, these siderophores, they are also acting as bacterial magnets. Okay, so these siderophores, what they will do when they are released into the exterior of the cell, they will bind to the iron from the surroundings and they will get it back into the cell. Okay, siderophores, first they have to go out of the cell, then bind to the iron and they will get this iron into the cell. So these proteins are also called as siderophores. Now these siderophores are released by the organism to the surrounding environment, whereby they bind and bind any available iron. The iron siderophore complex then bound by a specific receptor on the outside of the cell, allowing the iron to be transported into the cell. Okay, when the bacteria is forming these siderophores are released into the exterior of the cell or the surrounding of the cell. These siderophores, they will bind to the iron and get it to the cell. So on the outside of the cell, there will be some receptors. Receptors means binding sites. So these receptors will bind to the iron siderophore complexes. They are serving the purpose of binding to the iron siderophore. Whenever the siderophores are binding to the iron, they come and bind to these receptors which are present on the outer side of the cell membrane, outer side of the cell, allowing the then iron will be transported into the cell, leaving the siderophore outside. Then siderophore again goes to the second cycle of binding to the iron particle or Fe particle, and then it gets to the cell membrane or cell near to the cell. On the receptors, it will bind, and then iron will be transported into the cell, and then siderophores will be released from the receptor. Again, it will go to the third cycle. So in this way, the cell continuously, the siderophores continuously transport iron into the cell until the requirement is fulfilled by the cell. So in this diagram, you can see this is the cell. First, these are the siderophores, which are actually these siderophores are produced by the cell itself. They are released into the surrounding exterior of the cell. Then these siderophores will bind to the iron, that is Fe3 plus. This is the complex of iron and siderophore, and these complexes will bind to the receptor site. This is the yellow line is the receptor site which is present on the outer side of the cell. And when this iron siderophore complex binds to this receptor site, they will these siderophores will release this iron. This iron will be transported into the cell, releasing the siderophore outside. Okay, so again, this iron will bind to the siderophores. These iron siderophore complexes will bind to the receptors present on the outer side of the cell, and then the iron will get transported into the cell, leaving the siderophores outside. Again, the siderophores will go and bind to the iron. So this shows the transport of iron or iron uptake mechanism by some of the bacteria by siderophores. So till now, in this presentation, we have learned different nutrition uptake mechanisms. We know the importance of nutrients for the cell. As we need food for our cells for the survival, the cell also needs nutrients for its survival or reproduction or any other processes to take place, right? So how to get the food? We cook the food, we eat the food, right? But the bacteria cannot do all these things. It has to take the nutrients from the external part of the cell to the interior by different mechanisms. So in this presentation, we have seen different types of uptake mechanisms, starting from passive diffusion, where we have seen that the nutrients are transported across the cell depending on the concentration gradient. This is the passive diffusion where simple molecules are transported. Next is facilitated diffusion. Here, the difference is the involvement of carrier proteins are permeases. Okay, in the passive diffusion, there was no involvement of any carrier proteins, but in facilitated diffusion, there is an involvement of carrier proteins. And the next concept is active transport. As the name suggests, here energy involvement is there or ATP involvement is there. That is why the name active transport. And in this diagram, we have seen that these three mechanisms, simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, these two are coming under passive transport because energy involvement is not there. And the third mechanism is active transport, where the energy involvement is there. Here also carrier proteins are involved as well as ATP is involved. And the main difference between these three processes is here first two processes are transporting molecules along the concentration gradient. It means from higher concentration to lower concentration, but in active transport the transport is against the concentration gradient, that is from lower concentration to higher concentration. In this active transport, we have seen two types. One is primary active transport and the other one is secondary active transport. In the primary active transport, best example is ABC system. The full form of ABC is active ATP binding cassette system or ATP binding cassette transporter. We have seen this ATP ABC transporter system through this diagram. This is the substrate. When it binds to the substrate binding protein, this will be carried across the cell membrane through carrier proteins utilizing ATP here. This is the ATP binding site. First ATP will bind here and it gets hydrolyzed and energy is released. This energy will be utilized for the opening of this carrier proteins and transporting this substrate bound protein into this protein into the cell. So this is ABC system, and the next is secondary active transport. We have seen the best example for this is um, we have seen different mechanisms in this secondary active transport. Here, the secondary active transport is utilizes energy from proton motive force. Proton motive force develops when more electrons are taken up from the surroundings. When more electrons are taken into the cell, negative ions will increase inside the cell and positive ion concentration or proton concentration decreases inside the cell compared to the outside of the cell. So that gradient is called as proton motive force. So due to this PMF or proton motive force, there are different three types of mechanisms we have seen: uniport, symport, and antiport. Uniport, in this diagram we have seen, they will transport the molecule only in the one direction, either from outside to inside or from inside to outside. And symporter, it is transporting two molecules but in the same direction. And antiporter, it is transporting two molecules but in opposite direction, one molecule from outside to inside, whereas another molecule from inside to outside. And next we have seen, after active transport, we have seen group translocation. Here in group translocation, we have seen 2 points are important. One is, instead of ATP, another ATP energy source will be utilized, and the second one is the molecule which is getting transported will be modified chemically. Okay, this also we have seen through diagram. This is the best diagram. Here glucose is getting transferred and this is the enzyme, and from the inside of the cell phosphate is entering and from the outside glucose is entering, and both will combine to form a glucose 6 phosphate, and this glucose will be transferred into the cell in the form of glucose 6 phosphate. Here the molecule which is entering into the cell is chemically modified, and the energy source here is not ATP, but here in this example it is phosphoenol pyruvate. The phosphate from this PEP is getting transferred onto the glucose molecule, which is getting transported. And the last uptake mechanism we have seen is iron uptake mechanism. One of the important point we have to remember here is siderophores. What are siderophores? They are the proteins which are helpful in iron uptake. This also we have seen through clear diagram. These siderophores are synthesized by the cell itself, and they are released into the environment. When these siderophores, they will act as a magnets in the environment, and these siderophores will bind to the iron molecule, and they will bind to the receptors which are present on the outer side of the cell, and then they will release these iron molecules into the cell, releasing the siderophores outside, so that it can carry out the next cycle of attaching another iron molecule. So in this way we have seen different nutrient uptake mechanisms. So hope you understood well. Thank you.